Welcome to our podcast TERRA Tech Talk behind Humanitarian Aid. I'm Lucas from TERRA Tech, and I'm presenting the first episode with Nicos Katsouris and Joseph Ayamga. This podcast is released on the first Wednesday of every month. We reserve the right to change names in order to protect personal rights. And now I'll hand over to Nico and Joseph.
A hearty welcome to our listeners of the TERRA Tech Talk podcast. Today our guest is Mr. Joseph Ayamga from the NGO SEND, Sierra Leone. A very warm welcome to you, Joseph. Nice to have you in the podcast.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate this podcast so much.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's start with your own story, how you became country director of SEND, and then go into the story, the bilateral story, or both being by mutual story of TERRA Tech and SEND.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you to listeners of this podcast. My name is Joseph Ayamga. I'm the country director for SEND Sierra Leone. SEND is actually an acronym. It means Social Enterprise Development Sierra Leone. So I used to study here in Germany at the Head School of Governance, and I have always been interested in development work. So I reached out to the GIZ organization here that was also doing youth employment promotion activities in Sierra Leone to do an internship with them. So they accepted. I traveled to Sierra Leone. I worked there for 3 months. And then after I decided to extend my internship for another 3 months. So overall 6 months of working with them. So I had the opportunity to travel across the country to see different places. At that time, it was difficult to travel. It was difficult to work because it was immediately after the war. So displacement took place, disarmament was still taking place. And in a lot of the places, infrastructure was not developed.
There was a civil war in Sierra Leone, right?
Yes. For 11 years. So which means that a lot of the infrastructure was destroyed. Education was also not something to write home about. Health was a big problem. Water and sanitation issues were even on the higher side. And so I had the opportunity to see this, and it touched my heart that we have people in our communities who cannot have access to basic needs such as food, water, and things that can make even life very meaningful for them. And so I decided that I really wanted to do this because growing up, I've always had help from other people because I also came from a poor background. And people supported me because I was willing to learn. And I was always curious to do things for myself. So why not give back to society what society has given you? So after my master's program at the Head School of Governance, it did not even take me up to 1 month to stay here because I was so eager to go back and use whatever skills that I have to be able to do things that can help people, take them out of poverty, or help them to do things that can help themselves and their communities. And the reason why I took up this job was that, growing up, I'm always interested in how, what baffles me is how can some people be so okay and other people don't have a lot of opportunities, a lot of options. I kept on asking myself, is it their fault? Is it someone else's fault? Is it that they don't know that they are supposed to do things to help themselves? And so these types of questions made me curious. And I always feel that people can do a lot of things for themselves if they get a helping hand, like what I was able to get. And I was able to go to school and learn certain things that is helping me now to give back. So part of my goal of working with SEND at its initial stages was to be able to utilize whatever skills I have been learning since I was a child growing up in Ghana, the experiences I have here in Germany, interacting with politicians, interacting with development institutions and people who are very passionate about bringing change in society. these things actually gave me the drive and to leverage on that to develop better skills, to use my knowledge to create projects in Sierra Leone that can support education, health, and maybe climate resilience in the country.
Okay. And how did you finally get to the NGO SEND?
So, as I said earlier on, I was working with GIZ, but GIZ, they had this youth employment promotion program in Sierra Leone. They've been running it for the past maybe more than 15 years now.
Maybe we need to explain what GIZ is. It's in German, Gesellschaft of Internationale Zusammenarbeit. It's a German NGO, a governmental NGO as well as as far as I know.
I think it's the technical cooperation aspect of the German development organization, and they are basically focused on doing things that can help people gain skills, that can help people to use whatever skills they have to support themselves. So that's what we were doing in Sierra Leone, and I got the chance to also support this initiative, social enterprise development. They were just starting up to in the district called Kailahon, and they were a very small organization. And I felt that most of the things that they wanted to do, they were aligned with what I've always wanted to do. So I took over as the leader of that small organization, and we started to work in only one district. I don't know how you call districts here in Germany, but it's a very small locality with over 500,000 people. And we used to do all kinds of intervention, providing livelihood support to people who were displaced by the war. And then when in 2014, Ebola struck in the country, we had to mobilize both internal and external support to provide food, to provide logistics, to provide certain things that will make people be protected, but basically educating them about the Ebola situation and how they can prevent themselves, how dangerous the disease was, because you can be sitting with one person at this moment, the next minute you hear that person is gone. So a lot of precautionary measures were needed to make sure that we prevent people from being infected by this disease, but also to make sure that some of the measures that were put by the government and the international community, people were able to follow those guidelines to protect themselves. And then after the Ebola, we had to work with people to reintegrate them into their homes, make sure that they have startup support to ensure that they are able to live very good lives, if not to rebuild their lives as they were, if it is not better than what they had before. So it was in the process of trying to rehabilitate some of those communities. I had traveled to Germany here to meet with friends, but also to look for opportunities, because I had lived here and worked here, and I knew that there were a lot of organizations that were also interested in helping people who are in need. So a friend of mine who also worked with me at GIZ as an intern, we were all there together, introduced me to somebody in TERRA, Leone, and then shared the contact with me. I decided to reach out. So I had to travel all the way from Bonn and then here in Germany to Marburg to meet with her. We had discussions, and then later on I was able to meet with the chairperson, who is Gangolf, and then Andreas, to discuss my reason for coming here. The beginning, they were not so sure because they were also not having a lot of resources at the time. But they, after the discussions, we all were of the view that yes, there's an opportunity to explore joint programming together and to make sure that if we can continue our partnership to promote good development in Sierra Leone, and SEND was accepted as a partner maybe a few months after that with just some pilot projects. And that is how we started.
The piloting project was, as far as I know, a project where Ebola orphaned children were allocated to foster parents?
Yes, so and I still remember the name of the project very well. I think it was training for foster families of Ebola orphans. We started this project in June 2016, and then until June 2017. At that time, we targeted 24 Ebola orphans, where we were placing them into foster homes, because these were children that lost all of their parents. There was no relative to take care of them, and the government system, there was no social protection scheme in the country that can help children like that, or people who are vulnerable as a result of epidemics or other forms of diseases. And so their situation was very dire, and a lot of children died as a result of that, because there was no care and all of that. And in the district, Kailahun, where SEND was working, that is where the Ebola actually started. Yeah, we were in one of our training programs when we got the news that there was Ebola, so we had to stop. And we had to restructure ourselves. What do we do? Because we are a development organization. And if there is a crisis like that, it is important that we stand on our ground and do something to help people. So we decided to map out the children who were vulnerable. But at the time, when we had the partnership discussions with TERRA, they didn't have enough resources. So they told us that they had about 3,335 euros. And we said, sure, we can use that to support especially children who were in dire need. Yeah, they basically have no help. So we can look for families that were willing to take care of them, provide them a place where they can stay, and then to have immediate food assistance to them, but also working with those families to start income generation activities that can help them to support their own children, but also to support the education of some of these foster children that we bring to them. And the last thing that we did was not just that, but SEND had always had this village savings and loan scheme and a microfinance program. So we invested some of the resources there so that these families can have trainings on entrepreneurship, self-reliance, and competency building, but also scanning their environment to know what possibilities exist for them to be able to do something that they can earn income. And so that training helped them, plus the initial capital that we give them. They were able to undertake economic activities such as agriculture that they do in their communities, or any little business idea that they have in their communities. So that's how we were able to rehabilitate some of those girls. We still have some of them now who are now in school. Some have finished the secondary school. Some have gone to skills training institutions to learn something. Others are still in the university to pursue some education.
Sounds like it's a success story.
Yeah, that's why I say, well, sometimes people just need a little bit of help. And when they do get the help, they probably take it beyond the initial help that was given. And that is what we have realized with this type of partnership that we have with TERRA.
That was the first step, but we went from there. We have a long-term cooperation.
The rest is history. I think after that, they came to do an evaluation of the project. I think Leone and then Gangol. We traveled all the way to Kailahun district. They visited some of the foster families, and then the credit union. Credit union is something that normally SEND builds around the community level to provide financial services to local business people. So they visited and saw how the credit union was cooperating with those women's groups and the foster families to provide help to children. So when they came back, I kept on, engaging with a lot of ideas, pushing them that, yes, we can do more. We can do more, because at that time, TERRA was also a very small NGO. They were doing a lot of development in Sierra Leone, but they were not that like you have some big NGOs in Germany and also in Sierra Leone. So we pushed each other. I kept on pushing them with a lot of ideas, sharing information on what is possible in Sierra Leone and what we can be able to do together. And because I was based in Sierra Leone, I understand the local context. I know what type of projects we would need it. So I kept on sharing different ideas. Sometimes I can write 10, sometimes I can write 15, and but they need just one sometimes or two. And so one of the projects that we implemented was improvement of education infrastructure and quality education services. This was a project that was implemented from September 2020 to, I think it's now October 2022. And at that time, we were targeting to reach 2,000 students and then teachers and the Ministry of Education. And the reason why we wanted to do that was you have a lot of the education workers in Sierra Leone, especially in Kenema district, where we are working now. And basically, they don't have like training on how to organize the education system in the district. So schools are not supported. The management is poor. Leadership is not that it's not something that you can write home about. So there are a lot of problems with the education sector at the time, just even when it comes to those who actually manage education affairs in the country. So what we did was to provide them with capacity building so that they have basic skills on how to manage the educational system. We also realized that at that time, there was increased violence against girls who were in the school, either because of long distances that they travel, because of cultural practices that take them out of the school, and sometimes because culture has segregated roles and responsibilities for girls and women that they spend so much of their time instead of investing that in skills development. You see them mostly at the household, in the farms, in places where empowerment is not there. And so they are segregated and they are subjected to just domestic activities. And so we had been participating in education coordination meetings. This one is a form of meeting where people who are working on education meet on a monthly basis to discuss what type of education activities are ongoing in the district, what challenges do they have. And I sat there, and some of my NGO college and the Ministry of Education, they kept on blaming those girls for living irresponsible lives, blaming them for being the cause of the rape that was increasing, blaming them for everything. And that year, most of the girls who had taken the senior secondary school examination failed, and they said they were not serious. A responsible state government would have asked the question, why are these girls failing? But all they could do is to victimize them and say, look, it is their fault that they are not studying. They did not ask themselves, is the system okay to support them? The tradition that affects them, is it the problem, or was it something else? So I decided that, look, if this is a case, why don't we just have a school that is focused on helping those girls too? And that year, which was around 2016-17, a lot of the girls, the areas that they failed significantly was in the sciences. They couldn't pass biology well, physics, mathematics, and chemistry. So there was no future for them because these are core subjects that you even need to pass before you can have tertiary education. So I said in the meeting that, then why don't we do something about it? Instead of just blaming the girls. Yes, teaching is one way, but are there other factors that actually affect these girls that they are not able to do well? So we decided that we wanted to, one, look into the education infrastructure, look at the training content, look at why is it that those girls are not able to perform well. So we explored of rehabilitating a school, but we found out that if we do that and the system is not there, it will still not work. So we decided I wanted to construct a whole new school that will focus on STEM education, which means that girls who have the access and the opportunity to go to that school, they focus on learning the science subjects such as physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics, and agriculture, and ICT. And so these were the initial thinking around the school.
Thank you for your interest and attention. Please send any tips or suggestions to the following email address: podcast@terratech-ngo.de. Would you like to get involved? Then take a look at our website www.terratech-ngo.de. In the next episode, you can look forward to the second part of the exciting conversation between Nico and Joseph. So be sure to stay tuned. Thank you very much. See you next time.